Okay, we're just waiting on the notifications. And boom, we are live. Hey, I want to welcome everyone for tuning in to a special edition of Off the Record. This afternoon, we have a great guest, Sis Sharima Muhammad, someone who has been putting in work for decades. I want to thank you, Sis Sharima, for taking time out of your busy schedule to come and have a conversation with us. Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thank you for inviting me.
No problem, no problem. Well, Sister Sharima, when was the first time you heard the teachings of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad?
Well, I was born a Muslim, but the first time I heard the minister that I could think for myself was October 18th, 1981 in New York at the 369th Armory or 169th Armory. And his subject was the time and what must be done.
In 1981?
Yes, sir. October 18th, 1981.
Boom. Excellent. And the fact that you said you were born already knowing that you were Muslim, could you explain, give us some background on your parents? I know you told me that your father did security for Malcolm X. Could you give us some history of your parents?
My parents were brought into the nation by Malcolm X. They were street people. They were drug addicts. And, you know, when you hear the stories about Malcolm going into the drug den and getting people, they were not stories. They were real people. And my parents were those real people that he went in and got. So they related to Malcolm because, you know, he was a pimp and he was a hustler and, you know, he was a drug seller. You know, he was their people. They related to him because it's like he gave them hope. Like, you could clean up, man, shit, what, we can do it too. And he brought them into the nation. And subsequently, when he left, they left with him. I have 6 other siblings who remember Malcolm coming to my house for dinner. I wasn't born yet. So I have no knowledge of this relationship between them. It's just verified through my mother, father, and siblings. But I'm the only one that was allowed to go to the mosque when Minister Farrakhan was the national representative of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. So I have a different perspective than they do. My allegiance has always been to Minister Farrakhan, and theirs has always been to
Malcolm. Has that relationship with you and your parents, did that ever get better as time went on?
They just accepted it.
Okay.
And one day, my father, I don't remember what we were arguing about, but he said, "You Farrakhan, baby." And I just looked at him like, "Yep." Malcolm was a hypocrite. You wasn't even there. You wasn't even born. I said, well, I can look objectively at it. He was a hypocrite. He said he believed and then he didn't.
Yes, ma'am.
So, you know, it causes problems at times, but then they just, you know, you wasn't born yet. You wasn't there. You don't know. And it's like, yeah, okay. And we just let it go with that. But they never tried to prevent me from when I decided to come back into the nation. It was encouraged from everybody. You know, and it seemed like the family was happy that somebody went back to the mosque.
Excellent. Okay, in the comments, walaikum salam, Brother Eric, walaikum salam, Naima, and Brother Charles from Dallas, Texas. Thank you very much, sir, for always checking in and showing love. Yes, ma'am. What was it like for you when you first meeting the Most Honorable Minister Farrakhan?
Well, when I first met him, I was a part of the audience, and every week he was on a 6-week tour that he was doing at Friendship Baptist Church in Brooklyn, and that was on Wednesday night. So I went that first Wednesday night, and I so happened to have gotten a letter from my mother in the mail, and she sent a necklace with it, with this letter, with the star and crescent. And in the letter, she's like, you know, she pray I'm well and blah, 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 blah. But this is the flag I was born under, because at this time I was in the 5% nation and I was wearing the 5% flag. And that is, I was a part of the 5% nation, period. And I'm looking at the letter like, why is she tripping? You know? And, you know, basically trying to dismiss what she's saying, but it was like, I'm not understanding why she sent this letter, because she didn't know I had went out Wednesday, because she was in down south. So she didn't know I went out Sunday to see the minister. It was just a random letter And it was kind of all connected. Like she's just going off in this letter that this, don't ever forget that this is the flag that I was born under, the star, sun, moon, and stars. This one. And she sent the necklace to reinforce that. But I'm wearing the 5% flag. And I'm like, she tripping. So I'm sitting there and I'm listening, waiting for the minister. And his speech is profound, it's powerful, of course. He's dropping bombs. And when it's time to leave, he always went down the other aisle, the brothers' aisle, and he's shaking their hands. So it didn't strike me at that moment to say anything. But I think by week 3, and he kept going down the brothers' aisle, I had raised my hand and said, when is he going to come down the sisters' aisle and shake our hand? So the next week, he came down our aisle, and I was sitting in the first row on the end. And he reached out and he shook my hand. And I looked at him. He looked at me. He said, I know you. And I'm looking at him like, yeah, right. He said, I'm going to tell you who you are in a minute. And he kept shaking hands, and he came back and he said, John 47X, and Sister Emily 6X, are they here? I'm like, oh my God, he knows me, or he knows them, or I look like somebody. So he went on, and that was it. And, every week they started handing out little index cards that you could send up questions. And, that's just my nature. I had questions. And on this 6-week tour, I ended up meeting Sister Zanola, which is Brother Hassan, Brother Radiant, and EK's mother. They are important figures, but they come along later. And she was a member of the 5%. And she's talking to me. And I don't know why she's talking to me, but I find out later it's because they were from the 5%. And she's just really conversing with me in a way that I understand, because the 5%, we have our own language. And it was just like so many questions I had. And, I'm just really enjoying coming out and learning and building. That's what we call it. So after the 6-week tour is up, they invite us all to come to Muhammad's Mosque, number 7. At this time, it's on Eastern Parkway. So I guess after the 6-week tour, I ended up going out on a Sunday. And in my mind, I'm not accepting, but little did I know, I had already accepted, but I didn't know it at that time. And I started coming out on Sundays. And then they invited us out to study group. Because of course I still have like a bunch of questions. And they eventually sent me to orientation class. And I'm 15, I just turned 15. So I'm really not old enough to go in MGT class, but they're explaining that when you're 16, you're gonna have to write your own letter. Because right now you're covered under your mother and father's letter. But there will come a time that you have to make this choice for yourself. And I had my mother's permission and everything to go out to the mosque. But at this time, I wasn't living with her. I was in a foster home. So, I'm just continue to come out and learn as much as I can, and, questioning the hell out of anybody that would take the questions. And Brother Kareem gave me the Sister Aisha, because she was in charge of orientation. Her name wasn't Aisha then, it was Sister Tony. So, I'm going along and, really enjoying being with brothers and sisters that are positive. That's, my view of them. I don't agree with everything, but, y'all positive. I'll hang out with y'all for a little bit. And eventually, and I just could not get past this daggone letter. It was the hardest thing for me in my life. I knew all of my lessons. From I think 13, I knew 120 degrees, which is all of the lessons by heart. So, and that's what qualified me to be able to wear the 5% flag, because you couldn't wear it until you quoted 120 degrees lessons, which is all of the lessons. So I then did that, and studied the lessons that are behind the lessons to give you understanding of what they mean. So I'm just like, have an attitude. Like, why do I have to write this letter? Not understanding, what's behind it. He said it takes concentration, dedication, and submission in order to be able to write this letter.
Yes, ma'am.
And I guess eventually I submitted because my letter passed. And I was accepted to go into the MGT class. But my holdup was, I no longer bear witness that Master Farrakhan Muhammad was God.
Mm.
So that was my hang up. That was my holding me back. Like I just did not believe that anymore. And but it was like, they're encouraging me to do good. So I'll hang out with y'all. You know what I'm saying? Y'all like, you're different, but you're all right.
Yeah. Sister Sharima, one second. Brother Michael wants to clear something real quick. Your orientation, the person who did your orientation was Sister Aisha, who used to be the national captain.
Right.
Correct.
But
Okay,
her name
yes,
wasn't Aisha then. It was
Sister
Tony.
Tony. Okay,
right.
Yes. Okay, excellent. Okay, yes, ma'am. All right, and thank you, Sister. Aaliyah says, "Hey, Auntie," and then Mimi says, "Walaikum ASA family, walaikum salam." Okay, yes, ma'am. Now, Sister, what was it like coming in New York during this time period? Minister Kareem is the minister. What was it like serving under him? For people who may not know what it was like, know Minister Kareem and his leadership style. What was it like working with him?
Well, Minister Kareem had a way about himself. He made you feel like you were a part. Of course, at 15, I'm a youth. I'm classified as a youth, there's no doubt. But before I even submitted it and considered myself to be a part of the Nation of Islam again, I had suddenly stopped coming out.
Mm.
And one day I was at my brother's house and 2 FOI showed up at the door. Like, what are these brothers doing here? And I opened the door and they said, Brother Minister Linwood sent us to find out if you're all right. I'm like, yes, I'm fine. They said, you haven't been out. You know I was out that next Sunday. Because the minister of a mosque, I'm nobody, in my opinion. I'm nothing. I'm nobody. I'm just somebody that wandered in off of the street. But the minister of this mosque thought enough of me, a 15-year-old child that's living in a foster home. Why am I not coming out? And sent the brothers to see if I was all right. And that moved me. And I don't think I missed another meeting for years after that, because I knew that the minister would notice. And that's the type of minister he was. That there was no big I's and little U's. I remember a brother Zelbert in particular, who was always there, doesn't talk a lot, hardly ever says a word. And I remember one day he wasn't standing post next to the door. And the next week he was back. And Brother Kareem was teaching. And he looked and he said, Brother Zelbert, Assalamu alaikum, brother. I missed you last week. It's things like that. It's the little things. And we were just a very militant mosque. Minister Kareem didn't really want to be the minister. He said New York should have many ministers, because he didn't feel that he was a great speaker. And coming behind Malcolm X and then Minister Farrakhan and being the minister of number 7 and the East Coast minister, he felt that he didn't speak well. He felt like he had speech impediments. So he always raised up young ministers to go out and teach the word. He said, because one day people are going to sit at your feet because you were able to hear the word of Jesus, the Lamb of God.
Yes, ma'am.
Heard this man in real life, and they will harm you because you are not sharing it. But that was his teaching. You know what I'm saying? He taught the minister and to defend him at all costs. So we had, like I said, we were a very militant. He was a very militant person. He said, everybody in here got to fight. You teach the baby how to fight. Teach the baby how to throw the bottle, huh? He said, tell the baby to bite the devil on the ankles, huh? He said, Granny, throw the walker, throw the cane. Everybody in here got to fight. He said, so what if some of us got to die, huh? If we can all be free.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's just how we grew up. No fear. No fear of death. He said, because a coward dies 1,000 deaths, huh? He said, I want to die like a man. So you want to die like a man. You want to die like a woman. If you're afraid, there's nothing wrong with being afraid. Just walk out now. But we can't have you acting like you with us and you a coward. You know what I'm saying? He said, we all got to go sometime. Wouldn't you rather go for the liberation of our people? I thought about it, yeah. Because alone as an individual, my life means nothing. But collectively, if we die for the greater good, then we died for a good cause, you know? So that's what it was like growing up with him as a minister, always willing to defend, not just him by himself, but all of us. You know what I'm saying? At any point, we were willing to die for him and each other. We were family. Even brothers and sisters I thought I didn't like. It's like family. I can talk about you, but nobody else better talk about you or try to hurt you. You know, we had an incident in Boston when we went and was doing security, and out of the corner of my eye, I saw somebody getting ready to get hit, and I didn't like her. So I thought, until I saw her come into harm's way, and I jumped over. I was the first one over there, and after that, I couldn't get rid of her. She's like, "You love me," but it's moments like that you realize we all we got. You know what I'm saying? We family. I don't care whether you're from the East Coast, West Coast, South, East, West. You say you believe, bear witness that Allah came in the person of Master Farad Muhammad, you my family.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. Speaking of the West Coast, how was it like when Minister Khalid, when Dr. Khalid was on the West Coast? How was that? How was that during that time?
They were the two bookends. Because I thought he was crazy too. Crazy, amazing. I loved Minister Khalid and respected him immensely, but I believe he was also a great military mind. He was brilliant. They were different in their teaching styles, but they were absolutely defenders of the minister. They changed the game. And the minister kept cautioning these Caucasians and telling them, you want to deal with me. He said, because those that are with me, he said, I have one on the East Coast that'll kill concrete and the other one on the West Coast that'll kill stone. And he was talking about Dr. Khalid and Minister Kareem. And those two, they didn't care. Because when the devil kept threatening the minister, well, I know we're supposed to say the enemy now. I'm old school. You got to forgive me.
Yes, ma'am.
The Jews in particular, when they were attacking the minister, the Brooklyn Mosque was on Eastern Parkway, which is this long parkway. And we were on Eastern Parkway in Utica. And this huge Jewish community is on Eastern Parkway in Kingston, which is one train stop away. But you can walk there. Minister Kareem was teaching on a Sunday because they said they was going to take a busload of the Jews and go to Chicago to visit Louis and the boys. And this was like on the news, and they were just like getting real, you know,
yes, ma'am,
rowdy, getting real loud, vocal, that they going to Chicago. And the minister Kareem went off, and he said, "You ain't gotta go to Chicago. Come down the block, come down the street." The next week, Minister Kareem took about 300 brothers in their Class A and marched them down to their synagogue and stood across the street and just stood there at attention in silence. They were terrified. And then they changed their tactics. He scared them to death because they keep saying they want it, but they really don't. That's why you can just, in their mind, they can just think you have a weapon and kill you because that's how afraid they are. And they are afraid of Black people who are not afraid of them. And we are, in their opinion, superhuman because we don't smoke, we don't drink, we don't chase women. Well, we're not supposed to. They're like, they're superhuman. but it's because we know who we are. We are gods. And we have no fear of dying. That scares people. People are afraid to die, you know.
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't know because all my friends were Muslim. I didn't know that was a thing.
Because
everybody thought like me. We ain't afraid to die. It's like, I'm ready to meet my maker, but are you?
Okay, excellent.
You know
And yes, ma'am. I want to just briefly say, I see you all's questions. Rashad, I'm coming to it. Sis Naima says, all praises to Allah. Leah says, yes, ma'am. Brother Elijah says, yes, ma'am. Good teaching. Sister Anita says, teach the truth, sister. Sister Shaniqua says, indeed, you bear witness. Excellent. I want to say that this podcast is brought to you by my sister Miriam's book, ABC I Love Me. It's on Amazon. My brother, Politically Oppressed, and Jamal's Street Premiere if y'all need video editing. My second book, which is on Amazon, Cleopatra. Please get that. Also, if you want to sponsor a podcast, inbox me or hit me at J Imagination on Cash App. Let me know what's going on. We'll promote your business. Excellent. Sister Sharima, what was your relationship like with the Wharf Dean and the other Muslims in that community in New York in the early days?
Y'all want the truth, or you want me to be politically correct?
It's off the record. We want nothing but the truth.
I didn't have no relationship with them. We didn't like each other. You know what I'm saying? We were enemies, as far as I was concerned. And there was a lot of resentment on both sides. We felt like Wallace was a hypocrite. Imam Waterthine was a hypocrite. They felt like Minister Farrakhan was a hypocrite because he was with them and then he left. Being a child that was raised in the Nation of Islam and us having so much into going from having so much to almost nothing, and him turning the junior FOI into Boy Scouts and hanging an American flag in the mosque, and changed their name to the American Muslim Mission. Changed all of the University of Islam's names to the Sister Clara Muhammad School. Like he was trying to erase all memories of his father. So there was a lot of resentment, a lot of hurt on both parts. We just did not have a good relationship with them at all at this point. Although we knew each other for the most part because it was like an actual split in the family. I grew up in 7C in Brooklyn on Bedford Avenue. You know what I'm saying? I remember the green room. That's where the children played. I remember the lieutenants. You know what I'm saying? So it was a difficult relationship, but we didn't love each other anymore at that point. It was like our parents had a divorce and we were the children that were in custody of this parent and they were the children in custody of the other parent. And we fighting with each other over what the parents did. And that's my analogy of how it was at that time. But there was no love, honey.
Okay, yes, ma'am. On the flyer that I used to promote this podcast today, there was a picture that you sent me of you doing security for the Most Honorable Sis Farrakhan. Could you please explain to us how that came about?
The minister had decided he wanted to have the sisters be his honor guard this year for that Savior's Day. I believe that was 1985, if I'm not mistaken. And to my knowledge, the captains were supposed to choose 3 or 4 vanguard for this honor guard post. And this year I was not chosen. And, you know, my feelings were hurt, of course, but I really didn't understand fully what it was. And I'm home minding my business, and Sister Ina, she was in charge of the vanguard in Chicago, and a drill instructor there, whom I had met the year before. In 84, October, we did a youth week in Chicago from the Final Call building. And they sent, you know, the best from everywhere, all over the nation to represent their city. And she was on the phone and she said, stand by, the minister wants to talk to you. So, you know, I jump up, I'm at attention, yes, sir. So I'm like, yes, sir. And he's like, so you won't stand up for me? I'm like, sir? He said, you won't stand up for me? And I said, I don't know what you mean. He said, I'm looking at this list and your name is not there, so you won't stand up for me? And I said, no, sir. They didn't pick me. He picked me. What is this talking about pick me? He's yelling at me on the phone. And he said, I'm looking at this list for my honor guard and your name is not on this, so you won't stand up for me? I said, no, sir, they didn't pick me. He said, well, I choose you. And I was like, yes, sir. He said, I'll see you in Chicago. Salam alaikum. And he hung up the phone, you know? So that's how that happened. Which consequently is the first time I met your dad up close and personal. I'd seen him several times before, him and brother Akil. They used to travel with the minister and they used to always have on these trench coats. So we used to call them the brothers in the trench coats. We didn't know their names. But that was my first time meeting them up close and personal and actually finding out their names. And your father talked to us and, you know, he was all right. And after he talked to me and told me he had just got married a month before or a couple of months before. And he thinks I'm going to like his wife. And started bombarding me with questions about it. Well, I think he's gonna like this, she's gonna like this gift or that gift. And I'm like, I don't know her.
Yeah.
Like, you a sister? Which one you think she like? And I'm like, I don't know, dude. I am not into purses and scarves and all this dainty feminine stuff. And I don't know. I said, but she'll love it because you thought of her. See, I was politically correct. And I ended up meeting her 2 years later.
Praise be to Allah. Now, when you were holding post of the minister, what were your feelings like when you were on stage as a woman, a young teenager? What were you thinking during this time period?
That was my first time realizing that it is not us that's protecting him. That we were there, but there was a force around him that we couldn't enter. That was my feeling. And women are different from men, because there was a point in the speech where we all closed in on him and the minister said, he started looking around like, what the hell's going on? What do y'all see that nobody else see? But we hadn't talked about it until after. And he asked us what was going on. And all of us, which we had not had a chance to talk to each other, said that we felt a cold wave coming to the room that we felt was a danger. And that's when we closed in on him. And he looked at his brothers that normally protect him. He said, see, women are completely different. They go on instinct. They didn't see a threat. They felt it. So that was my feeling. It was an honor, you know, one that, you know, as long as Allah gives me memory, I will treasure. Because we stood up for him and showed the world that it's not just the men that are willing to die for him. We'll die for him too.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. New York history, Madison Square Garden was a big event, a monumental thing in the history of the nation. What was it like being in New York during Madison Square Garden time?
Woo. It was tense because, you know, the Jews were relentless. It was a mayor named Mayor Koch, and the minister had made a speech and he said, our people live in hell. And Mayor Koch had made a little snappy remark, and he was a homosexual. Well, if New York is hell, then it's a nice place to live. You know, trying to make jokes about what the minister was saying. But it was a lot going on because the minister had jumped in to protect Jesse Jackson, who had ran for president, whom had called New York Hymie Town. And the minister was really getting on the brother that knew that this statement was off the record and put it on the record and made it a problem. And that's how the minister came to the attention of the Jewish community. Yes, and I happened to be in the audience when he made that statement about Hitler being a great man. But the way that they spliced it, they made it seem like he said that in one sentence. But he didn't. It was at two different points that he said that. And they put it together and made it seem like it once, because it's like I'm listening to it and I'm like, he said that, but he didn't say that behind that. That's not right. Something's missing. But, you know, I didn't know enough about what they were doing. But we know that they're weak and wicked, so nothing should surprise you. But what I noticed when we were going, as it was leading up to the event, you know, the city was just quiet and it was weird. And the minister called me during the week, I think the week before, and he asked me, you know, what's going on? What's the spirit like in New York? And do I think the youth will come in? And I said, yes, sir. I think the youth will come in. He was like, so what are they saying? I said, I can't tell you. He said, why? I said, because you're the minister. He said, it's okay. You can tell me. I'm going to tell you now, between me and you, I used to hang out with some Negroes.
Yes, ma'am.
In the stairwell. Those are some friends. I don't think I'm better. So they be in the hallway, in the stairwell, smoking their weed, drinking they drink. And they say, you know, nigga, Farrakhan, that's my nigga. That's my nigga. You know what I'm saying? You saw how he came in there. He was on Ted Couple. You know, he handled him. You know what I'm saying? I'm going Sunday. I'm going. You know what I'm saying? That's my nigga. So I told him, he was laughing so much, his wife had to take the phone. She said, what did you tell him? He is crying. Tears are coming down his cheek. And I told her what the youth were saying, because he told me I could tell him.
Yes, ma'am.
So when we were going, Madison Square Garden is in a central location. All trains can get to Madison Square Garden. So we're going on the train and it's silent, but every train is packed, but nobody's saying nothing. And Brother Hussein's mother came out, and she's one that once the nation fell, she never came back. Even she got up and she was going with us. And she said, this reminds me of this great event that the nation had in the 70s with the minister. I think with 70,000 people showed up.
Okay, yes, ma'am.
And she said, this reminds me of that, because every Black person here, she said, I can tell they all going to Madison Square Garden. When we came up out of the train station, it was a sea of Black people. Everywhere you could look, just from the guard, I mean, just packed, couldn't even spit on the sidewalk, waiting to get in. So, you know, we got in, we doing security. And at some point, somebody got on the mic and said, are there any former followers of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad present? Can you please fall out and help us check and move our people in so we can get this event started? And it looked like the Bible came to life, because in my opinion, Wallace D's followers did not look like they were alive. They looked like they were dead to me. When you stand them next to the minister's followers, whom had a light, they seemed dim to me, in my opinion. Yes, but what I saw was these brothers and sisters hadn't been on post in at least 10 to 13 years. Popped up, full cut corners, moved, went and checked the people and moved them, and then after stood post. And if you go back and you look at that video, you'll see people in jeans and plaid shirts standing in strategic locations. Those were Wallace D's followers. And what I found out later was they said the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because they always referred to him as the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, said, look at him, listen to him. They said, and they will not harm him. We will all die today. They came to protect him. Praise now I told you we were at war. They came to protect him, to defend him, because they said nobody will touch a hair on his head. We'll all die today. And they showed and proved that by moving in the people and making sure that he was secure. So we saw a crack in the ground of us moving towards each other, because they came to defend, not to see what these crackers was going to do to him, not to rejoice, but to defend them. Said, you will not touch him.
Praise be to Allah.
So okay. I saw that. I lived through that.
Excellent. I want to just say, Brother Michael Shabazz says, brother, I got to get some sleep before I go to the plantation, but I can't stop watching. Praise be to Allah. Sister Anita says, I absolutely love and absorb your honesty, sister. That's what he means when he teaches you the nation will never fall again. Thank you, Brother Kevin, my brother. Damn, I love this podcast. Thank you, Brother Kevin. Sister Naima says, that's deep. The other Sister Naima Applause. Thank you, sister. And everybody else was clapping for you. Brother Orlando, awesome. Praise be to Allah.
Praise be to
Now,
Allah.
I knew you you knew me before I was born, but you knew me as long as I remember you, you were drilling. Could you explain to us how you got into drill and what is your what gave you a love for drill?
I don't know why I love drilling. I'm just good at it. And I ended up being the DI. My first time drilling was 1983, Savior's Day. But we used to watch the VHS cassettes. Now it's on DVD and no YouTube. But we used to watch the Savior's Day competitions, and I just loved it. It's comedy, it's drama, it's everything. You know what I'm saying? And I think it was 82 that Brother Khaled's West Coast FOI had drilled in these white FOI uniforms, never been seen before. And they introduced left step. Man, that changed the game. My brother said left step, and it looked like the earth was shaking when they went left. Man, listen, I was done. Chicago's Vanguard had introduced this new Vanguard uniform with the fez that, you know, looked like a hat with the thing on the back, and they had swords, you know, they were sticks like swords, and they had music and lights, Star Wars music, talking about Warriors for Muhammad, Warriors for Muhammad. And that was the first time ever Vanguard salute. I was done. Where can I get my turn? And I ended up on the drill team. Brother Anthony, that is now the assistant supreme, his sister was the DI in 83 when we drilled. And that from that point on, it was on and popping. And the next year I was the DI for New York. But we used to drill together in the mosque after the meetings, the brothers and the sisters, and always have eliminations. And there was only a few, the same few left every week. It would be Brother Xavier, Brother Kenneth, Hussein, and this little brother, he was like 7 or 8 years old, Clyde. It was like we could be drilling from then till now, and we would still be drilling. Yeah. And it would be me and Sister Michelle left on the sister side, and Brother Anthony would call. And man, Brother Anthony would call that daggone oblique to the rear march, till you were just dizzy. And that is a difficult call when they're calling it so fast.
Yes, ma'am.
But the requirement for drill is concentration. We don't eat swine, but it comes to a point where you're no longer thinking. And that's what carries you over the threshold.
Yes, ma'am.
You have to stop thinking and just listen to the voice of that one command. That's what we're supposed to do as Muslims. That one command, that one voice, because you lose yourself in order for you to be a great driller. You have to lose yourself.
Yes, ma'am.
And submit that you're not thinking. The trust is that the DI is the thinker.
Yes, ma'am.
You just following instructions. That's the breakthrough. Anything else?
Yes, ma'am. Now you told me that you drilled with Public Enemy. Could you please explain to us how that came about?
Public Enemy was a rap group. I was living in Washington at the time. And I remember going to a hip hop concert, a show, and Brother Steve X kept saying, "You know them." I went to the show. I'm like, I don't know them. And because it was dark and they had machine guns, and he kept saying, "You know them, you know them." So they had an appearance at a club that night or the next night, but I think it was the same night. And Brother Steve took me, and afterwards we went to the back to see them, and I did know them. I knew Professor Griff, which is Brother Richard, and I knew Big James from the mosque, and they had a little James. I didn't really remember little James, but I remembered Big James, you know, the real built one with the cheekbones. I remembered them from the Mods. So brother, and I hugged Brother Richard. I loved him and I really remembered him. And I was like, man, how could I not recognize him from the stage? But he said, you know, I'm the road manager for them now, but can you come to New York? You still drill, right? And I'm like, yeah. He said, can you come to New York and tighten these brothers up with their steps? Cause you know, I know you can drill. And I said, okay. So we didn't make a date or whatever, but he just said, you know, I want you to come to New York. And then I think he called me and I ended up going in another week or so. And I remember when I got there, somebody from England was doing a documentary on them. And this was my first time meeting them. And, you know, I'm assessing them and I'm asking them to show me, you know, their steps and everything. And they thought it was a joke because, of course, they had never met a woman that could drill. They only knew, you know, Brother Richard. And so I guess they thought I was going to be a pushover. But I love a challenge.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
And I did not hesitate to let them know that I thought they were sloppy and slack. And but don't worry, I'm gonna get you right. And they were like, they couldn't believe it because at first they were taking it as a joke. And then they realized who they were dealing with. And I had to straighten them up. And I helped them make up some steps and everything. But that night we were doing a show at the Apollo. I didn't think I was doing anything. I was just there. I just got there. And Brother Richard gave me this Public Enemy hat, and jacket, and tam, and was like, yeah, you can stand on stage with us. Like, what? I don't know these steps. I can't do that. He said, just stand there. And what ended up happening is Flavor Flav came up to me and he's doing all his, you know, his dance, you know, and you can't move. You can't show a reaction. You can't, you know, once you're in uniform, you can't respond. So he's dancing all over me. And the people in the audience is going, that's a girl. And then they're like, ain't no girl up there. And then it's like, it's a group of people. No, that's a girl. And like a bunch of people rushed the stage to verify, and they found out that it was a girl just standing there. And they went nuts. And from that point, he asked me to go on tour with them. And this was ended up being the Run's House tour. Eric B. and Rakim, the Fresh Prince, Stetsasonic, and this was EPMD's first tour, Run DMC, and I may be missing one or two people, but it was a hot lineup. So I ended up going on the tour with them because Griff was busy being their road manager. And as a result of being a part of Public Enemy, we ended up having a girl group, the Female Public Enemy, which was Elite Force. And we had a hit record in London. And they did this big article on us in this Black-owned newspaper, asking about us as individuals. And Asia was the rapper, and I was the Minister of Information. I was Griff's counterpart. And we had this girl named Stephanie. She was Queen Mother Rage. She was Lady Rage in Elite Force. She later on became a member of the X Clan, Queen Mother Rage. But that's our Lady Rage from Elite Force. So that's how that happened.
Okay, excellent. My brother Rashad wants to know, were you at the mosque in New York when the police tried to enter the mosque in New York?
No.
Okay, yes, ma'am. Were you at the Million Man March, and what was your role, if so?
I was at the Million Man March, and I was there because I worked as a part of the medical team. At the time, I was there as an LPN and a EMT. And I brought one of my teachers with me. She was a clinical nurse specialist. And we were in the first trailer. And I believe we had one of the two fatalities. An old man knocked on the door early in the morning and he said he didn't feel well. In our trailer, we had a father and son that they were both doctors, and they took care of him, and they called for an ambulance. And the international Black firefighters were in charge of logistics of how to get you out. And I believe the other person was a police officer that also had a heart attack and died, that we found out later. But the old man said that he doesn't feel well. He said, but if I die today, it's okay, because I live to see this day. And later on, we found out that he did, in fact, die. It was powerful, to say the least. But we didn't know how many people were there, because when we got there, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was pitch black. And all we kept hearing was the African drums and the patter of feet. And you saw people just moving like shadows in the night, just moving into the park, into the area. And then the sun rose, and we looked around, and it was just this sea of Black men as far as you could see. And I was there, but I did not feel like I was walking on the ground. I felt like our ancestors were holding us up. And I mean, the day was very emotional. I cried, and I mean, so many times. Every time I saw that, it would bring me to tears. To this day, if I see a picture or a film, it was, that was history. And I also believe what Brother Kareem said 20 years before this happened. People will hurt you because you were alive and you heard the words. You were there and you did nothing, you know? So I was there in an active part. I didn't just stand on the sidelines waiting for stuff to happen. I was a part of it, you know?
Praise be to Allah. Have you ever received death threats or felt fear? And if so, how did you overcome that?
I don't know if I've ever received any death threats. I know that when we did that youth week in Chicago, I ended up in the paper in Chicago, because apparently they took it as a threat that I said that if you try to harm the minister, we're not afraid to die, but we're not going to lay there and just go alone. We will kill you. Everybody. Your mother, your father, your grandmother, your niece, your nephew, the cat, the dog, the snake, the frog, everybody goes, because we're serious. That you just assassinating Black people is over. You got the last one.
Praise be to Allah.
And Martin, we taking you with us. Now, we don't mind dying, but we ain't just gonna lay down and die. Y'all coming with us. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, ma'am.
So I don't know. I'm just not wired. I don't seem to have any fear. I think it's that Muslim thing, you know.
Praise be to Allah.
It's crazy, but it's not. It's just that we're just conceived and just, it's in our DNA, the way we are, that we are programmed to fight. We're fearless. And now y'all have it, but it's like, I told Sister LaShonda, I said, I often forget when they call for the Vanguard that I'm not a Vanguard anymore. I'm moving, and I'm looking like, why don't I recognize these people? And then I realized, hello, you it ain't talking to you. Go sit your old butt down. But I still very much associate with being a youth. You know, Brother Kareem made us a part of everything, every decision. We were a part of it. And that's what I'm used to. And the minister always wanted to know, what does the youth think? How do they feel about it? Because it's going to be young men for war, old men for counsel. We're not getting anywhere without each other. You know what I'm saying? You might have the energy and the strength, but we have the strategy. You know what I'm saying? And we have to counsel you and tell you how to get it done. You know what I'm saying? You might be able to get it done faster, but we can get it done smarter. You know what I'm saying? With less fatalities. You know what I'm saying? So, but fear, no.
Yes, ma'am. Brother T. Farrell says, I remember when that older brother said he didn't want to be worried about him being urged to get medical help. My eyes still well up when thinking about that. Yes, sir, Brother Sarah, Orlando, Brother T. Farrell. Yes, ma'am. Did you ever have to get in a physically fight in your time serving in the military?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am. Could you explain what happened?
I told you, somebody was coming after one of the sisters in the check room, and when we went to Boston, because Brother Kareem, anytime the minister was on the East Coast, we went, as a mosque to support him wherever he was. If he was close, and anywhere on the East Coast was considered close, so we would go and help out with security. And it's not our intention to have to beat on our people, but when you come in and you want to do harm, and this woman came in with a mission because she was about 6 feet tall, if not taller, and she seemed, in my opinion, to pick this particular sister, whom was the captain of the Vanguard, but she was very short, Sister Sharon. She's married to Brother Arif now. And she picked her to be the one that checked her. And, she's explaining the checking procedure to her, and she went to hammer her hand on her head. And we were slumping. And and we dragged her up out of there. But that was the norm. I grew up watching that when I was little. The MGT always was coming out with their headpieces like this. With their shoulders like this. That was the norm, seeing somebody getting dragged out. That was the norm. That's how we grew up.
Yes, ma'am.
People talking about, I watched the brothers snatch somebody out and carry him out like this. His body is like this, getting dragged out because he wouldn't. The minister said, "I wish you would be quiet." And that was the last hurt. He kept going back and forth with the minister. He trying to speak. Brother Kareem jumped up off of that rostrum, and that was it. That was it. And that was the one thing about Brother Kareem. He ain't need no security. It's some action. They trying to hold him back. He the first one down there because somebody threw a chair through the door. Brother Kareem was upstairs. He was the first one down there whipping that.
Well, praise be.
But these are the type of people that we have as leaders. We didn't have no punks. You know what I'm saying? As our leaders. Nowhere. Not the MGT, not the FOI. We were taught to fight with those who fight with us. We are not the aggressors. But if we are attacked, we fight in the name of Allah, and we pray that you are successful. That was said at every mosque meeting after prayer. That's how we live our life. We are not the aggressor, but there will be no turning the other cheek.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. I have a question for you. You've discussed Minister Kareem, Dr. Khalid, a lot of the men. Have there been any fascinating women that you've met along the way, and who are some of those women, the sisters?
Well, Sister Ava. She had a law office in the mosque. Her, Sister Barbara, and Brother Larry, may Allah be pleased with him. They had a law office in the mosque, and I told you this is like in my early days. I would question her to death. Because she used to just be sitting reading physics books for fun and chemistry books for fun, which I found to be weird. But later on, I found out her father was a professor of either chemistry or physics, and that was her fascination with it. But she was in the ministry, and she was very strong, yet feminine. And I just admired her so much because we only had Mother Tynetta, and then Sister Ava. And I had asked the minister during that 6-week tour if there were any women ministers in the nation. And he said that when Master Farad Muhammad was here, they did have female ministers, but they were so strong, they frightened the men. He said, but we will have them again. And eventually Sister Ava entered into the ministry. And I think she was one of the only ones, or she was the only prominent one, but she was still in New York at that time, and she was our assistant student minister then.
Praise be to Allah. Yes, ma'am. Excellent. Do you have any advice for future mothers?
In terms of what?
Just advice that you think they should know.
It's a lot they have to know. That's such a broad question.
Yes, ma'am.
The Nation of Islam, this is a quote from your mother. We are not in the business of making orphans. Okay? So once you become a mother, that is your first post, is that child's mother. That's your first priority, is to that child, because they didn't ask to come in here. Yes, we have no fear of dying, but that's why there were once you became a mother, you couldn't be a vanguard before, in the first. And if you wanted to be a vanguard, you had to have your husband's permission. That changed years later because our demographics changed. We have so many young girls being mothers coming into the mosque and not wanting them to miss their opportunity to be a vanguard. They're now a part. But you must always understand that your first post is to be this child's mother. You are their everything. Not to say that losing a father is going to hurt any less. But if you lose your mother as a child, it could be devastating, because this is your first nurse, your first teacher, your first love. This is the person that teaches you to be a believer, because we carry the faith. And this is a great responsibility. And don't lose focus of that. You'll have your turn in the sun, but when you have in your children, raise your children. You don't want somebody else raising them, because you're going to get the blame. So you better be on your job. And it's a very important job.
Yes, ma'am. Praise be to Allah. What keeps you going all of these years, decades, all this time? What keeps you going to have such a fiery spirit and belief now?
Because I believe I am a knower. Because I studied so much coming up. I ended up entering into the ministry as well. I think when I was 16 or 17 years old, I became a part of the ministry as well. And as a part of that, even before that, I just study. I don't take anything on face value, meaning that you can say something, but I'm not saying I don't believe you, but you have to show and prove. This is something that I've carried from me from the 5%. It's very confrontational, I know, but you have to stand on your square. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
And prove what you're saying is true. If we say that the Black man is God, baby, you better prove it. And I have researched and I have found that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad's teachings are 100% true. Not because somebody told me, but I've investigated damn near everything the minister says. I go to the library. Well, we used to go to the library and I would look it up. If he's talking about Easter being a part of being pagan and the Easter bunny being this and that, guess who was in the library come Monday morning? Not saying that he's a liar. I don't think he's going to lie to me. But I need to know. Like I said, I didn't bear witness that Master Farad Muhammad was Allah anymore. That was a struggle for me. And I asked questions to people that I respected, and nobody could give me the answer that I was looking for. But it was a homework assignment that Sister Ava gave the MGT that asked the question, what makes Master Farad Muhammad Allah? And it was through my own research that I found the answer that I had been looking for 2 years. And ever since then, I have not faltered. And it's like I might not understand the move that the minister makes necessarily, but I know that he is divinely guided and that he was chosen. So I'll shut up and I will submit and follow. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not built like the minister, but I'm also not divinely guided. And that comes into play with the patience and mercy. And, I would be like, you allow mercy and all, because we want to get at it. And I get frustrated because it's like, with this damn peace. I don't want to be peaceful. You know what I'm saying? When in our opinion, Jesse dissed us, if we was the one standing out there, standing most, going with him everywhere he went, it wasn't just the brothers, it was us too. Standing post, putting our life on the line, because the minister said, protect him as if you're protecting me. And then he turned around, this boot-licking Negro, and you didn't want us to retaliate? Yeah, I had to pray on it, because it was like, yeah, he's a lost mercy. Because see, I didn't want to show no mercy. But see, he's a wise teacher. And you have to have faith that he is divinely guided. He has not lost one. See, with me being in charge, who knows how many of us would have been going? Because we not afraid.
Yes, ma'am.
But see, we don't see the bigger picture.
Yes, ma'am.
And that's what keeps me going. That I believe that Allah came in the person of Master Farrakhan Muhammad. I believe that the Honorable Elijah Muhammad is the Lamb of God. And I absolutely believe that Minister Farrakhan is their mercy. And I have no doubt about that. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm perfect and I don't fall short, but my belief in them three is perfect.
Okay, wonderful. I want so Shaniqua, Sister Sharima lives in Atlanta. Brother, I'm gonna butcher your names. Sorry, brother. I think it says Halal Hooper. Powerful, real talk, foundation. Love the platform. Thank you very much. And I want to thank you all for watching this special edition of Off the Record with Sis Sharima. I hope that you all have been informed and inspired like I have. Thank you very much, Sister Sharima.
Thank you.
Thank your family for their sacrifice as well. And man, just thank you for your sacrifice and
thank
for,
you.
Helping us establish, Islam. Walaikum salam, Sister Sharon, God, second self, Muhammad. Boom. All right, and Sister Sharima, I'll text you now. All right, thank y'all for watching. Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you. Walaikum salam.